I sleep with my hand hanging off the side of the bed. I always have. It's a habit that serves as a strange anchor to reality, a way of feeling the cool air of the room, while the rest of me is buried under the weight of heavy blankets. Most people fear the dark space beneath the bed, but for me, it was always a place of comfort. That's where Rex used to sleep. Rex was a 100-pound German shepherd, my guard, my silent protector in the fortress-like estates of Abuja. In this city, we live within what architects call the architecture of fear. We build high perimeter walls, topped with jagged glass and electric fencing. We hire men to stand at our gates with machetes and flashlights. We create cocoons designed to keep the world out, but in doing so, we trap ourselves inside with our own shadows. My estate in Gwarinpa is no different. A maze of interlocking stones and desolate duplexes where the only sound at night is the rhythmic, mechanical hum of 1,000 diesel generators. Last night, that hum was the only thing I could hear when I woke up. I felt a familiar sensation. Something was licking my fingers. It was slow and wet, a rhythmic drag of a thick tongue across my knuckles. I didn't open my eyes. I just smiled. I thought, he's back. My boy is back. For a fleeting second, the brain does this incredible thing called a Bayesian prior. It predicts comfort based on years of shared history. Then, the memory hit me like a bucket of ice water. Rex died a year ago. I saw the dirt cover his face under the mango tree in the backyard. I felt the dry harmattan wind chapping my lips as we buried him. He isn't under the bed. He hasn't been there for 365 days. I froze. My chest began to shake with a silent, primal panic. The licking didn't stop. If anything, it became more intentional. I felt the tongue slide between my fingers, dragging across the sensitive webbing. I could hear the wet, slathering sound in the vacuum of the room. It wasn't the rough sandpaper lick of a dog. It was smooth. It was human. I felt a warm breath against my skin, not the rhythmic panting of a canine, but the slow, measured respiration of something that was savoring the moment. I didn't move. I didn't pull my hand back. I knew that if I did, I was acknowledging that this was real. And if it was real, I was already lost. Then it bit me. It wasn't a snap. It was a slow, agonizing application of pressure. I felt the upper and lower rows of teeth, blunt, human teeth, sinking into the soft flesh of my middle finger. It pressed down just enough to let me feel the resistance of the bone, testing me. I slowly, inch by inch, pulled my hand back onto the mattress. The thing didn't resist. It just let go. I rolled onto my back, gasping for air that felt like dust. The room was pitch black. The harmattan haze had swallowed the moonlight. My bedroom door was closed and locked with the 3 heavy Trellador deadbolts I check every night. I reached for my phone, my hand shaking so violently I nearly sent my water glass crashing to the floor. I turned on the flashlight. The room looked normal, empty, but my hand, there were deep red indentations across my skin. 2 perfect rows, and the saliva, it wasn't clear. It was thick, stringy, a pale, yellowish mucus that was already starting to cool and tighten on my fingers. It smelled of old copper and curdled milk. That's when I noticed the closet door. It was open a crack. I always shut it, always. And from the darkness of that crack, I heard it chewing, a slow, wet, grinding sound. Crunch, squelch, crunch. Like someone working their jaw with incredible effort, grinding something soft between their teeth. Then, a voice. It was low, muffled, as if the speaker's mouth was overflowing with something they couldn't quite finish. You taste better awake. The closet door creaked open another inch. I couldn't see inside, just the absolute black of the interior. Then, something dropped onto my floor with a soft, heavy thud. It rolled toward the bed, stopping near my foot. I shined the light down. It was a finger, my finger. I saw the small, jagged scar on the knuckle from a childhood fall. I saw the nail chipped at the corner, exactly like mine. I looked back at my right hand. All 5 fingers were still there. They were attached. But as the flashlight beam lingered on my index finger, I saw a single dark bead of blood form at the tip. It grew larger, swelling, until it became a heavy drop. It fell, drip. It was as if my body was catching up to a reality that had already occurred. This is what we in forensic folklore call the Reduplication Paradox. To understand what happened in that room, we have to look past the ghost stories. We have to look at the intersection of neuropsychology and the biological anomalies that thrive in the gaps of our reality. Folklore researchers have tracked the licked hand legend back to 1871, to a diary entry by a man named Dearman Birchall. In those early versions, the horror was a simple burglary, a clergyman reaching down to feel a reassuring lick, only to find his dog locked outside and his valuables stolen. But over a century, the story mutated. It moved from a tale of property loss to a tale of body horror. By the 1960s, the legend became "Humans can lick too," a warning about the thin line between the familiar and the predatory. In modern Abuja, where the architecture of fear creates profound social isolation, this legend has taken on a terrifyingly realistic clinical form. What I experienced is known in psychiatric literature as the syndrome of subjective doubles. It is a rare delusional misidentification where a person becomes convinced that a physical duplicate of themselves exists, a double that leads a life of its own, often with malicious intent. Unlike purely visual hallucinations, this case involves tactile interaction and physical matter. This moves us into the realm of He-autoscopy, a pathological state where the self is perceived to be in 2 places at once. Neurology tells us that our sense of self is located in the temporoparietal junction, a fragile network of neurons that maps our physical boundaries. When this system fails, usually triggered by acute stress or traumatic grief, the line between me and not me dissolves. Up to 82% of bereaved individuals experience what are called sensory experiences of the deceased, phantom touches, familiar sounds, or the sense of presence of a lost pet. My grief for Rex created a hole in my reality, and something stepped into it. But the finger on the floor, the biological duplicate, suggests something even more disturbing. It points toward the medical curiosity of the fetiform teratoma, or the homunculus. These are tumors composed of tissues that can spontaneously sprout hair, bone, and even organized teeth and brain matter. In extremely rare cases, they become highly differentiated, organized enough to mimic a malformed fetus. If the thing in the closet was a biological internal other, a parasitic twin that achieved sapience, it wasn't an intruder from the outside. It was a byproduct of my own biological existence. It was the ultimate shadow self, claiming its share of reality one piece at a time. The slow bleeding from my intact hand was the neurosensory lag of a body being reduplicated. The brain's failure to immediately register the loss of tissue while simultaneously perceiving the detached tissue as self indicates a profound disintegration of neural integrity. I realized then that the licked hand wasn't a story told to scare juniors in boarding school hostels. It was a biological process. There is something that lives in the silence of our high-walled estates. It doesn't want your money or your electronics. It wants to replace you, one finger, one toe, one memory at a time. It licks to taste the quality of the harvest. It bites to claim the genetic material, and then it chews, incorporating your history and your scars into its own malformed frame. I looked down at the finger on the floor again. It was starting to twitch. The muscles were firing, trying to find their way back to a hand that already had a replacement. And under the bed, the mattress dipped. The pressure returned, but not on my hand. A slow, wet tongue dragged across my ankle. It wrapped around my Achilles tendon, pulling slightly, testing the weight of the meat. I felt the heat of a breath against my heel. "I'm still hungry," the voice said. It wasn't coming from the closet anymore. It was coming from right beneath me. And this time, it didn't sound muffled. It sounded exactly like me. The beam of my phone flashlight flickered and died. The harmattan dust outside began to howl against the window pane, a dry, mocking sound that drowned out the silence of the room. In the absolute dark, I reached out my hand. It was a reflex, a search for anything to hold onto as the world dissolved. And something licked my knuckles, reassuring, slow, wet. I didn't smile this time. In the annals of forensic folklore, we tell these stories to remind ourselves to lock the doors and check the back seat. But cases like this suggest that the walls we build to keep the world out are the very things that lock us in with our most dangerous doubles. Abuja's gated estates are the perfect breeding ground for these anomalies, sensory deprivation tanks where the only thing left to listen to is the sound of our own disintegration. If you are listening to this in the dark, if you are lying in a room you thought was secure, I have one piece of advice. Do not reach for the floor. Do not look for comfort in the ritual of the hand, because in the dark, something is always waiting to offer you reassurance. Something that knows exactly how you taste, and it has been waiting a very, very long time to be you. If this account has left you looking twice at your own closet, or if you've ever felt a presence in a room that should have been empty, share your experience in the comments below. The darkness is crowded, but you don't have to face it alone. Subscribe for more deep dives into the cases that science can explain, but the soul can't forget. Sleep well if you can.